Today's book surprised me at how much I enjoyed it, how much of a relief and comfort it was to read this one. I picked up You Are Not Your Own by Alan Noble, first because I love the title. For me, one of the driving forces in my life is that I don't own Sean Wilson. I once was my own man in my sinfulness, but I have been bought and paid for by Jesus Christ. So I like this book expressing a key feature of how I view my own life and to see it right there on the cover. Second, the subtitle intrigued me, Belonging to God in an Inhuman World. I think that our world is becoming more and more inhuman with our advances in technology. We don't know how to grow our own food from the ground anymore. And no one really experiences the death of the animals that they end up eating. Most people are separated from the messiness of both birth and death in this world. And so often we now have friendships that they could be with real people, but they're still 100% digital. And we spend more time looking at the screens on our phones than even the faces of our children and our spouses. The world is becoming more and more inhuman. And I especially wanted to see what Noble had to say about the importance of being owned by God in a world that is stripping us of our humanity, while at the same time telling us that we can be our own independent humans. And I gotta say, this book did not disappoint. This one was excellent. There were a few places where we didn't see eye to eye, but they were so insignificant that I don't even see them worth mentioning, because his overall message on the comfort from being owned by Christ is the perfect message which we need today. So if you have a few more minutes, I would like to tell you a little bit more about You Are Not Your Own by Alan Noble. Welcome to Rev Reads. If you want to discover more books about how Christians should live in a world that has fallen, please subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with my latest book review. Also, give this video a like, share it with other people online. It's your likes, it's your shares that help other people know about the work from IVP Press. And I want to say a huge thank you to my Buy Me a Coffee members. It's your support that allows me to cover all those costs that come with keeping up with Rev Reads so I can keep putting out these new reviews. And I would love for you to consider supporting the channel at a beginning membership cost of only $3 a month. You Are Not Your Own was published by IVP Press in 2021. Noble basically divides this book in half based on the content. The first half on how exhausting life is when I am my own, when I am the one who owns my life, and man, is it ever exhausting. Noble really highlights how miserable it is when you need to create your own self-worth, your own moral standard. You have to establish your own judgment of what is right and what is evil. And then you need to live on this sort of treadmill of self-advancement and even self-care where you can't ever be just good for goodness sake. You can't rest just to rest. You always need to, in some way, be making yourself better, the world better, your company better. Noble even points out that it's argued that if you give employees a certain number of vacation days, that's a good thing, because it's proven that employees that have a certain number of vacation days actually are more productive employees overall. And he points out that this type of reasoning is not good for us, because it shows that you can't even give your employees rest simply because it's good to give them rest, but you only give them rest because it benefits the overall bottom line. And when we struggle in a world to discover our own self-worth, we end up getting caught in really this whirlwind of forces that either works us to death or destroys us altogether to where we just give up and we decide life's not worth living at all. I'll just stay in my parents' basement, spend all my time on my computer, and stop living altogether. And Noble really demonstrates how being your own boss, your own rule book, focusing on your own self-care, it ends up ruining you. And you see our need in America for all this self-medication. That's just a symptom of the disease of self-ownership. And the real answer to life's rat race is to be owned by God. When you are owned by God, you are first empowered to walk in the truth. You don't need to establish your truth to figure out what your truth is, to defend it, to craft it. Instead, you are given the privilege to walk in the truth of God. Second, you don't need to set your own standards for morals, what is right or wrong. Instead, you can just go to God's word and allow him to direct you. And I love how he applies this to marriage and children. So many young couples wrestle over, should we have kids? When should we have kids? How many kids we should have? Because we want to have the best life and the most efficient life. And we need to know when is the most optimal time to fit children into our life goals to bring the optimal happiness. But when you let God set your truth, and God simply says, be fruitful and multiply, when God has established that the primary purpose for marriage is procreation, you end up just having kids because you know that's the call of the one who owns you. You don't concern yourself with if this is the right time to have kids or if this is the right number to have. You just have children for the joy of children. And even though they're messy, they're frustrating, they get in the way of your personal goals for your career, you find that following God's will for your marriage and your kids surpasses all of those goals that you could have made on your own anyway, just simply from the joy of having children. And what I love the most in this book is that when God owns you, you know your life simply has the purpose of obedience to your owner. You don't need to be concerned with how productive you are or how successful you are. You only need to be concerned with, am I obeying the one who owns me? This means you can love just simply to show charity. You can sit with the person who is lonely. You can raise your kids. You can love your spouse. You can serve with your church and more without the pressure of needing to prove yourself or make a name for yourself or earn more money or gain more followers. You can love simply because it's the loving thing to do. You can sit with that shut-in in their home, even if it gets in the way of more important things, simply because the shut-in needs you. They need your grace. They need your presence, and not because you'll gain some social credit. The key to you are not your own is that this message is freeing. It frees us to just serve and obey God. Not in order to make the most effective change in our church or community or world, but we get to serve simply because it's the right thing to do and God calls us in that direction. We need to get down to doing what is right simply because that's what God said in his word. Not because we need to be convinced that doing the right thing in the Bible will result in a certain number of people attending our church or all these changes happening in society, but we need to do right just because it's right. Because here's the main truth about life in a fallen world. At times, following God's word is going to appear to be ineffective. It's going to look like it's a waste in the moment. I mean, what a waste it was to wash and anoint the hair of Jesus with fragrant oil. What a waste it was for Jesus, the great rabbi, to spend time talking with the Samaritan woman at the well. Jesus did a lot of things that his disciples found to be wasteful. If they were going to turn around Israel, they needed Jesus to gain more followers, to get more clout, to bring in the right people. But Jesus was simply interested in doing what was right, doing what was good, what was lovely, and not what was necessarily effective. And let us live as those people who have been bought and paid for by Jesus Christ. Let's live for his goodness and not a need to prove ourselves or demonstrate our worth, because we know that our worth is found in Jesus Christ.